Well, hello everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us today on the Learn with Google 2022. This is our new series of webinars for this year. We tried to change up the format a little bit based on some feedback we received from you all last year, and hopefully you'll find it useful. So just getting started over here. Yeah, okay, that is the next slide. I will like to start on behalf of Australia, just to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, wherever it is for you, whose cultures and customs have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. And we honour the presence of the ancestors who reside in the imagination of this land. And those lovely diagrams you can see there was some custom artwork that we actually commissioned from an Aboriginal artist to represent some of the different places around Australia. So hopefully one of them covers where you are, and if not, there is plenty of Aboriginal land to talk about. Over to you, Steve, in New Zealand.
Yeah, but those of us over this side of the ditch, and for everybody else obviously on the call, so kia ora whanau, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, kia papu tuanaku tēnā koe, ki te whare tēnā koe, ki te tupuna tēnā koe, tēnā koutou katoa, tihei moriora. So welcoming there to the land you stand on, to the house you sit in, and also to your ancestors who have gone before you. And also we acknowledge and respect Ngāi Māori as the tangata whenua of Aotearoa, and we are committed to upholding the principles and partnership of Te Tiriti. So welcome in everyone today. Hopefully you get some goodness out of what we're doing.
Hope so. All right, just before we get started, I'd just like to introduce the team. There is real people at Google, despite the rumours to the contrary. We are real people. Paul Hutchings up the top there. I don't know if a lot of you may not have met Paul, but he's actually the country manager for Australia and New Zealand. I think a lot of you know the rest of the team. Bettina has just joined us recently and comes to us from a long experience within the industry. And so we're really happy to have Bettina on board. And I see she just did join somewhere there. So hi, Bettina. She's waving at us. The other person, I don't think he's on the call, and many of you would probably know Chris Hart. Chris Hart has run many things for Google in the past and now actually works for Google. So we're really, really pleased to have Chris on board as well. And of course, the usual suspects, Kimberly, myself and Steve, and Richard Johnson, who's probably not on the call, but Richard is our technical lead and great for answering all those questions that none of the rest of us can answer.
Yeah, he's the guy we go to when someone asks us a question, we go, that's a fabulous question.
That's a rich question.
Rich, yeah. Can you answer this question for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, more people want to join in. Click that button. There you go. Just to get us started off, I thought I'd just show you this. I'm not sure if you've seen this or not already, but every year Google does a thing called the Year in Search. It only goes for like 2 minutes, so I'll just show it to you. The way this works is over the course of a 12-month period, Google looks at all the queries that come in on Google Search, because that gives us a kind of a feel for what the world's thinking about. And we put this little video together as a summary of what the world was thinking about in 2021. So here we go. Steve, let me know if the audio is coming through.
This year has been extremely challenging for me. I am broken. And I am healing.
I'm here at the memorial wall. I wanted to do something to remember my mum.
For some reason, I'm having anxiety. Obviously, it's normal with everything that's going on right now.
I think I'm going to take a break for a while.
You can get through it, and if you can get through it, there's a greater reward on the other side.
Just like anybody else, you know, I'm just trying to do my little part to try and save my community.
I'm just really excited we're back open.
And I am smiling under my mask.
Incredible scenes on the day the fans came back.
Welcome back to the theater.
You guys, it's been so long.
You're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, there I am.
Be your best. Never, ever, ever stop dreaming. I don't care what they tell you.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, find the defendant guilty.
I am proud to be Asian.
We are not drowning, we are fighting.
We cannot keep quiet about climate injustice. No action is too small.
We just have to band together as a community and get people's lives back.
even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious.
So there you go. I'm not crying, you're crying, right? They're lovely videos, and if you ever get a chance, if you just type, if you go to Google and search for year in search and then put the year in, you can go back in time and look at some of the previous ones. It's actually kind of fascinating to go back and look at the sort of the zeitgeist of what we were thinking about in any given year. Oh, Steve's just dropped the link in the chat. Thanks, mate.
I did. Hey, look, I might jump in as well with this because we normally stick to our script pretty well, Chris, but
do we?
Sorry, people know we never do. Can I quickly boot you off me super rude?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Awesome, mate. Thank you. Just on this thing with the year in search, a really great thing that you can have a look at is this little screen that I'll share here, which is the current Google searches. And so this is for New Zealand. So it's what everyone in New Zealand is searching for. And if you do get to visit one of our offices, we often have this up on the wall for the location we're at. And if you have access to it, it's a really great thing to show on your screen. It's a nice little way. And if you click into one of them, it actually opens up what the search is all about. So this is kind of what people are looking at in New Zealand at the moment. There's something about cricket apparently, so I don't know. So anyway, I love that. There's a link in the chat that you can go to if you want to have a look at, and you can make it bigger and smaller as well. So that's me doing my little bit.
I love the fact that one of the searches is cork meaning for clearly all those people who tried to do yesterday's Wordle and couldn't get the word.
And interestingly, 2 days ago, one of the big searches was classroom. The other one was drive. So people are just searching for the word classroom. I didn't see any of the other ones pop up because I was looking for those. But anyway, classroom and drive. So anyway, that's me. That's me chucking my little 2 cents in. So really great for current events. Yeah,
fantastic. Thank you. If you're sharing, I'll throw mine back up.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'm just going to share the whole screen now because I want to do some things to show you a few new things, which is very exciting. There's my screen. Oh, we saw that. Stop. Okay. So here's the stuff I want to talk to you about today, or we want to talk to you about today. We'll look at some updates with Google Classroom, and just some ideas for Classroom for those of us starting the new school year, just some things to think about. But they may be things you already know, but just a little refresher. Then I want to just share some new things that have come out in Google Docs and Sheets. And when I say new, literally yesterday, and Steve and I were debating the other day about whether we could actually tell you some of these new things because we're really excited about them. And then we realized, oh, they're not public yet. And then yesterday they made them public. So very excited about that. We'll tell you about a thing called Chrome OS Flex, which is fairly new. Give you some Chromebook tips and a couple of extra googly things. And that ought to cover it all. So let's get stuck into it. So some classroom updates. Steve, just jump in at any time if you want to.
Yes,
so just to reiterate, again, these are not sort of new, but then the new since sort of the end of last year, I guess. Google Meet integration now really strongly integrated inside Classroom. So you'll see now there's a button inside Classroom that actually has the Meet Join button there, and the way that works is if you fire up a Meet call, and let's hope we don't have to do too many more remote learning calls, right? But it is a handy thing to have just in case you need it. When you fire up a Meet call from inside Classroom, it actually doesn't allow any students to join before the teacher joins. So it creates a Meet call on the fly, locks out any students until the teacher's in there, and then once the teacher goes in, it allows the students in. And then at the end of the call, when everybody's left, it actually burns that Meet call completely so nobody else can go back into it. Mm-hmm. So it fixes all of those little niggly problems that happened like way back in the early days when we were all using Meet sort of, and it wasn't really tuned properly for the classroom yet. Now it is. The other thing that's changed is if you have co-teachers in a Google Classroom, then when you create a Meet, it will automatically make those co-teachers co-hosts in the Meet, and they'll get co-moderating privileges as well. You don't have to manually reassign them afterwards. So that's a nice thing to have. I know many of you have, we've talked about it in the past, the originality reports inside Google Classroom, where you can get Classroom to run a plagiarism check on documents. Well, as of, I think, last week or the week before, you can now run that originality check on Google Slides as well as Google Docs. So it doesn't behave any differently, works exactly the same, just now you've got it in Slides as well, which is useful to have. And the fourth thing there is SIS, a school information system. That's the thing that most of your schools have, where you keep all the student information about, addresses and who their parents are and allergies and all that sort of stuff. We are building a system which will allow you to sync your SIS directly with Classroom. It's not quite ready to release yet, but we are opening it up to schools that might potentially want to be on a beta test of that. We will talk more about that later in the presentation, but just put that in the back of your head there. There is the option to do some beta testing on that SIS sync if you're interested. Okay,
yeah, so what it'll do is it'll help you to set up your classrooms, but it also helps to keep them synced with your student information system. So if a kid leaves that class, then it will actually sync with the classroom each night and update who's in the classroom as well. So if you're the sort of school that likes to bulk do everything to help everyone set up at the start of the year, this could be something that's interesting to you. We'll come back to that at the end. Fantastic.
I see Juliet just put in the chat there that there's still a big possibility of going in and out of remote learning at this point. And who knows? Who knows what this year will bring? Let's hope it's not too much of it. It's been fascinating to me to watch the usage statistics on our products as we go in and out of remote learning, because it goes up and it comes back down to normal and it goes back up again, and it's kind of fascinating to watch. But let's hope we don't have to do too much of it, right? Yeah. Some ideas for Classroom. I just want to talk about some Classroom ideas in terms of your workflows and your setups. And what I might do is jump out into actual Classroom.
Nice.
Oh, I want to do that on another machine. That's going to be tricky. Okay, I'm just going to talk about them first for a sec. So with the notifications, if you've ever got notifications in Google Classroom, you can drown in them pretty easily. You tend to get notified about everything that happens. You can fine-tune a lot of those notifications. I'm not sure if people realize that, but if you go into the notification setting, there's a whole bunch of settings in there to turn on or off notifications specifically for things you're interested in hearing about or not. So maybe you want to hear about it if someone adds a comment that mentions you, but you don't want to hear a comment if it doesn't mention you, for example. Like you can fine-tune that. You can fine-tune it per classroom. The lesson
you can also use sorry, Chris, you can also use the Gmail filters on that as well. So you can, if you filter out anything with the word classroom in it or an update from Classroom. So by going to your Gmail, adding a filter and sending those to maybe a classroom folder, it's those filters can be really helpful. Chris generally sets up a filter from my emails. It goes straight to trash. So I don't bug him asking silly questions. So yeah, you can set up those filters. That's kind of another nice little skill to teach your students as well. And let's be honest, and the staff. So using filters and tags inside of Gmail is really helpful. And also for those people who like to get an inbox 0, you can put everything into folders. I mean, I'm at about inbox 2,500 at the moment, so not quite there. But yeah, using filters and using folders will often help with that sort of stuff as well.
Fantastic. I'm going to unshare this screen and share this other computer because I want to show you some live demos and it's easier on the other machine. Kimberly Hall, you have just joined us. I'll let you say g'day while I switch machines.
Say g'day typically. Might say hello. Hi, everyone. If I haven't met you, I'm Kimberly. I'm part of the education team in Australia. I genuinely didn't know where I was for a moment. Sorry about that. It feels like it's been a long day, a long week, a long start to the school year, which undoubtedly all of you are feeling substantially more than me, and you are all so impressive to be giving your time to learn new things still. I'm in awe of all people in education. Right?
Is it about week 7 now, the term?
I've term 2?
Yeah, I've term 1. I think it probably feels like that for a lot of people, doesn't it?
All right, okay. You can also see my screen there. So I'm just going to show you a couple of these things that I was talking about. One is just general workflows and setup. It's always a really good idea whenever you go into your classrooms in Google Classroom. And this is not an introductory Google Classroom session, so I'm assuming if you use it, you kind of know it. And if you don't use it, well, we should talk. But when you go into Classroom, there's a little gear wheel up in the top corner there, and this is where all your settings are kept. And some of the things have changed in here since maybe the last time you looked at it, because it has undergone some updates. So if you want to pop in here at some time and just check the settings. I'm not going to go through every one of them here, but there are some new things in here. This is where you generate that Meet link that I was talking about. If you want to integrate Meet directly with your classroom, you can hit that button there. It'll generate that Meet link, and then you can choose to make it visible to students or not. And what that means is when you go back to the main page of that classroom, you get this button here. And that's the sort of the join button I was talking about. So really super easy and obvious now for kids to jump into a Meet. And like I said, it's got all those protections in the back end now from the way it works. Yes, Steve.
So I'm putting my hand up now rather than just butting out and trying to get a better student. And a tip I gave to school recently was, if you're the sort of person that reuses a classroom or like takes kids out and puts them back in at the start of the year because you don't want to rebuild your classroom, great idea is to go in where Chris just showed you and regenerate the Meet code, because a lot of the old ones don't pick up the new security settings. So go in there, regenerate it, and you should be all good.
Yeah, it'll actually give you a little warning if you've got an older, if you haven't done it for a while and you've got the older code style of code, it'll actually pop up a little box and say you should regenerate this. The other thing just want to mention too, if you go back to your main class list, and this is where you keep all your classes, of course, you've got a couple of options here. Let's say you did run a really successful class and you kind of want to reuse that format again next year. I'm not a big one for just doing next year whatever I did this year. I like to reinvent things. But let's say you had a decent setup that you wanted to sort of use. You can also always go into these three dots here and actually just copy that entire class. When you do that, it actually copies the class, but it strips out all the sort of the generic stuff. So it takes the students out. If there's been any conversations taking place in the stream, it'll just remove all of those. It'll basically give you the skeleton of the existing course that you used, but it will take out all the sort of dynamic stuff that was added in over the time you did the course. So that's useful to know. You can also archive a course. So if you finish with the course completely, there's an archive button there. When you archive a course, and let's do it to this one here. I'll do this WhatsApp, and we'll go archive. When you archive a course, it locks that course in time so that people can't interact with it anymore, but they can still access it, right? So I find this is great if you want to sort of graduate, say, I don't know, kids from year 10 that go into year 11, and you want to sort of freeze their year 10 work, but make it still available to them so they can access it if they need to go back and look at things, but you don't necessarily want them interacting with it anymore. So once you archive it, it will take that and then it goes into this collection down the bottom here called archived classes. When you go in there, you should see there is the course there that we just archived. And the slashy, the like diagonal lines through it, that indicates it's an archived course. If you really, really, really don't want it at this point, you can click the three dots again and delete it completely. There's no coming back from that. Once it's gone, it's gone. Okay.
Hey, Chris.
You can, of course, restore it. Yes, Steve.
When they're archived, you can still share work from them, can't you? So if you're doing that, I'll reuse post.
When they're archived, they're still 100% usable. You just can't actually change anything. It's like they're frozen in time.
Gotcha.
Hey, Chris, can I ask a question?
Please.
I literally just opened an email that has this question to me in it. And so I thought I'll use this open forum. I think I know the answer to a part of it, but I'm just wondering what the repercussions are if I just love my class so much and I don't duplicate it, but I delete all my students at the start of the year to add new students. What happens to my old students' stuff that was in there?
As far as I know,
it's definitely not the recommended process.
Yeah.
Someone has just done that.
Yeah.
So it's probably a bit late for me to tell her it's not the recommended process. So
it's not the recommended process for two reasons. One is that you kind of create more work for yourself because you've still got all the old students' content in there. And assuming you don't want the new students to have the old students' content, you've now got to go and manually strip all that out. So that's the big reason to not do it. But as far as do the old students still have their work, my without testing it, my guess would be yes, because it lives in Google Drive for the most part.
That's my thought too. I'm just cementing that. But yes, don't do that, everyone. I've got a whole screen full of reasons of the complications that this person has just created for themselves.
And also, never delete the classroom folder in your drive. Never do that.
But I like my drive to be neat, Steve. I don't like all that stuff in it.
Do not delete the classroom folder. Bad things happen there.
Yeah. Mark that folder as red and don't touch it.
Yeah.
Hey, the other idea that I just want to mention here, and this is something that the teacher showed me, and I kind of thought it was a cool idea, and I've showed it with others, and they seem to think it's a good idea as well. If you have lessons that you might want to perhaps reuse, or you've designed a lesson and you want to apply it to several classes, or for whatever reason you want to kind of reuse stuff you've done, rather than creating everything on the fly all the time, what I'm going to suggest is you create this class. I've just called mine the lesson library. You can call it whatever you like. When you create this lesson library, if I go in here, you'll see, if I look in, so this is a class with absolutely no students in it whatsoever, but I could have more than one teacher in here, and we could be working together. Maybe we're a year group or something, putting lessons together for, I don't know, year 5 or 6, whatever it might be. But in the classwork page, there's a whole bunch of pre-prepared lessons and activities and assignments and tasks and whatever you want to put in here. So you pre-prepare them all, right? And then organize them however you want. And then when you go to a real class that does have students, like let's say we pop over here to this, oh, where am I? I thought I had a class called, oh, yeah, demonstration class, that one. So I'm in this class now, and I go, okay, I want to assign some classwork to my students, but it's a piece of classwork that I've used before. I know it works. It's part of my lesson library. I can come in here now, hit the create button, and instead of creating something from the beginning, I can just go reuse the post, pop in there, and then reach over into my learning library, which, let's go back a bit and show you, is this one here. So you go into that empty classroom, empty of kids, not empty of lessons, and you pick one of the lessons out you want to use and you reuse it. And what it does is it just takes it out of this kind of holding area called the lesson library, and it reproduces it over in the actual class where the students are. And it's a big time saver because you don't have to keep reinventing things on the fly all the time. You can do them once, have them sitting there, use them when you're ready. So that's
available for any of the co-teachers in that class, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. If you've got co-teachers, they all have access to that. So that's kind of my top tip with Classroom. I find that a real time saver. All right.
Yes.
No worries. Can I go back to slides from here? I can. Let's go back to the right slides. That'd be even better.
Just seen a comment come in to the chat, Chris.
Yes, what was that?
Kent saying, I've noticed you cannot reuse posts that are not created in the Classroom tab, the stream.
On the stream?
Oh, yeah. No, streams are not really activities. The stream is a discussion place. I had this call from a teacher that my ex-wife used to work with, funnily enough, and when we changed the layout of Classroom, you might remember about 2 years ago, we changed the way Classroom works, and I got this sort of angry phone call going, all of my things have disappeared, all of my lessons have disappeared, and I couldn't understand why, because I knew that Classroom activities actually came across from the old way to the new way, and it turns out that this teacher was using the Classroom stream pretty much as the way to put lessons in, and she wasn't using the classwork page at all. Just putting everything in the stream. And of course the stream didn't come across to the new system, so she lost everything. So my advice is don't use the stream as a classwork giving thing, right? Use the classwork page for that. That's the right way to do it.
Sounds a lot like that would have been your fault though. Still,
I got the blame for it. Yeah.
I feel that was fair. I feel that sounds fair.
Oh, one last thing, and again, sorry, this is just another tip that a teacher shared with me. I thought this is a kind of a good idea as well, and that was, let me just get rid of this. I don't need that. I think I had it set up in the learning library as an example. In the classwork page, what one teacher told me that they do a lot is they just create this topic block called right now, or it might be called today or this week or whatever. Because the trouble is when you start to get a lot of things happening in a classroom, as many of you know, it starts to become a lot of stuff, and it's easy to get a little bit lost in there. So what this particular teacher did was they said, well, you know, I'm going to create this section at the top called right now, and that's the stuff I want my kids to be working on right now. So, you know, this cartoon physics activity here, that's what I want them working on right now. I'm just going to take it up there and drag it in there. So instead of the kids having to come in here and hunt through all the topics to find the things that they're supposed to be doing, they just know they look in the right now topic, and that's the stuff they're supposed to be doing right now. And of course, when you're done with it, you can just move it back into whatever area it came from. So I've heard of some teachers using that kind of idea with quite some success. So for what it's worth, if you want to give it a shot, there it is. All right.
So we just had two little questions I grabbed out of the chat there, Chris. Chris was asking if you could schedule a poster assignment for more than 2 classes, and I've said not yet.
Not yet. I'm pretty sure we have announced that it's coming. I don't think it's a secret that it's coming.
Oh, good. Oh, phew. Yeah, it is coming. That's one of the biggest questions from educators is being able to schedule a post for more than 2 classes, and that has been publicly said it is coming, and it is coming fairly soon.
Yeah. It's in testing at the moment, so it can't be too far away. So.
And Juliet asked about sharing outside the domain. So if you have allow listed the other domain, then you can share stuff with them via Classroom. Classroom was always designed to be kind of a walled garden inside your domain. So there are ways to do it. If you have allow listed another school, so if you're in a cluster, for instance, you can allow list each other, and then you can post across that way as well.
Yep.
And if you have no idea what Steve means by allow list, it's a process that happens through the admin console. So you would need to have someone at both school locations in both domains who has super admin access in order to make it successful.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, by design, Classroom is meant to be within one domain. Obviously, there's good reasons for that. You don't want people wandering into your classroom from just anywhere. But if you want to work with another school, you can basically, you need the administrator of both schools to say, school A trusts school B trusts school A, and then they can work together as though they're one school. Easy enough to do. Yep, sure. We'll, Steve, I'll get you to send Juliet some stuff on that. All right, let's talk about some Google Docs updates. So many screens in front of me. I don't know what I'm doing here. All right, Google Docs updates. I need to switch back to this other machine now. I'll just run you through them. First of all, it's a thing called pageless format. It was released yesterday. It may not be showing up for you yet, as most of these things may not be showing up just yet for you. Document summaries. We've talked a little bit before about smart chips, and they've been around for a little while now, but they just got a whole lot smarter. I was kind of blown away when I said they can do now. We've talked about approvals workflow, but I just want to mention it, and also the show editors. Some of these features, most of these features are in the fundamentals free edition of Workspace, but there's a couple here that are the premium features, and I'll point them out when we get to them. All right, how do I stop sharing this? I guess it
was funny when Chris and I were talking about this. We're like, oh, we'll show you a few things. We started playing with them. It's like Docs has actually become its own workshop now. There are so many things happening inside Docs. It started with that update to Smart Canvas that I didn't really understand what it meant when they first said we were redesigning Docs. But now that Chris and I and the team have had some great plays with this thing, I think the ability for Kimberly to set us to-do lists is going to be quite scary for us and amazing for her. And just all the stuff.
I don't need Docs. I don't need Smart Docs to do that. But I was going to ask Chris Betcher, is this the tipping point for you? Because you and I have had this debate for a long time that if we could only pick one Google tool, you would have kept slides and I was going to keep Docs. Are you coming over onto the Docs side of the...
Oh, that's like asking me to choose my favorite child. I don't know. No idea.
Oh, it's totally Kate.
I don't know. Isabella Henry.
I mean, your son is a teacher, so there is a chance that he's on this webinar. So maybe I should have said him. All right.
Okay. So I've just opened a brand new Google Doc here, and there's a couple of things now. I just switched back to my other machine here because I'm currently in my Google.com account. So this is the one I don't normally show people because it might have secret stuff in it, but the secret stuff's been announced, so I think we're good. But I'm just, like I said, you may not see this stuff in your account. Could be the next couple of weeks until you see it, but hopefully in the next few days. One of the first things is this thing called pageless format. So if I go, first of all, typically, let me switch to the normal view so you can see what it normally looks like, and you can remember this. So this is what you normally see when you set up your pages, right? You can apply the paper size and define what the margins are, whether it's portrait or landscape, all that sort of stuff. Now, that idea of a page very much comes from the pre-technology days when, we worked on paper. And then we went for a long time with technology, and but would always in the back of our mind would be, well, I might have to print this, right? And like hands up, well, no, I won't ask. I'm talking to teachers. You guys print a lot. a lot of the world doesn't necessarily print. And a lot of people create documents these days that are digital documents, and they will probably never be printed, right? That's because it's not the intention. So what you can do now, when this thing kicks in for you, you'll have this other tab up here called Pageless. And when you turn this Pageless one on, and you can change the background color too if you need a different colored page, but by default it's white. When you do that, it takes that away and you get this sort of expansive canvas. Let me just hide that thing. This expansive canvas, it has no edges. There's no edges, there's no bottoms, there's no gaps between pages. It's just one big expanse of canvas. Okay, and that's called Pageless format. So when you go to Pageless format, a few things happen. So for example, if I go to the insert menu, you'll see I don't have things in here like for putting watermarks on or for putting footnotes on the page, because in a pageless format, those things are irrelevant, right? They don't make sense, so they just disappear from here. But because it's pageless, there's a few things we can do with it. And one of them is this smart chip thing that we've kind of talked about a little bit. And if I just type an @ symbol, you'll see this list pops up now of things you can add. Now, some of these things have been here for the last few months, and some of them are new as of yesterday, right? So if I want to add a person, and I'll give you an example. So if I type Kimberly Hall, right, that's just a name. It's just a piece of text with a name. I can't do anything with that. It's
just a name? Oh, it was just a name.
If I go down and type @ symbol and I start to type Kimberly Hall, it actually finds Kimberly from the list and it puts it there in this little sort of grey bubble called a smart chip. And something else happened too. Because I mentioned Kimberly in this document, it's assuming I might want to share it with her. So it's popped up a box on the side here prompting me to share it, right? Have you ever done that before, where you create a document with someone and you forget to share it with them? Well, this will try and remind you that that doesn't happen. So I've now shared that with Kimberly, so that's easy enough. The other thing is if I hover over the, make some space here so I can see them, right? If I hover over the words Kimberly Hall, nothing, right? But if I hover over the smart chip Kimberly Hall, I get this box pops up with a whole bunch of information. I could come down here and I could send her an email or initiate a chat or start a meet call or create a calendar invitation. I can read a little bit about who she is and what she does and all that sort of stuff. So that's where the smart chip gets really smart. Now, smart chips do more than that. If I go down here and I say I want to look for a particular file. So I've got this file about Anzac Day somewhere.
Hey, Chris, can I just interject before you change off the people thing?
Yep.
I'm assuming that's drawing effectively from your contact.
From your Google profile, yeah.
Yeah, so if you, for a school, like I'm just thinking like schools that don't have their directories enabled and things like that, they probably would see different pieces of information.
They'd probably see less, yeah. They'd probably still get the buttons at the bottom, but they wouldn't see the information about
the profile stuff. Yeah, you probably just get the contact thing, but most schools are probably not entering a heap of information in the individual profile section within contacts.
Yeah, exactly. So now this next thing I want to show you, I was flipped to a document that's I've pre-prepared. So here's a little sort of essay thing that's written about Anzac Day, right? And if I open up this little side panel on the side here, this has been here for a long time. The outline, where as long as I have headings inside my document, I can press this button, I can skip to different parts. This is great for really long documents when you're trying to sort of scroll through quickly. But what's new is this thing at the top here called summary. And if I open this up by saying add a summary, you'll see it's actually generated for me a little 1-paragraph summary of what this document's about. So it's used some artificial intelligence machine learning here to kind of parse through that text and go, yeah, if I had to summarize this in 1 paragraph, that's how I'd summarize it. If I like it, I press the tab button and it locks it in. And so now I've got this little description.
That's amazing, because we used to have an extension TLDR for anybody who's old on the call like us. But my first thought is, I don't know if anybody else's mind goes to this, it's like, oh, my high school boys would have done that to synthesize everything I ever gave them to read as research. Like, here's my 2 sentences about the entire thing. Miss Hall just handed out. Done.
And where this shows up is back in Google Drive. If you click on a document in Google Drive and then open up the information panel on the side there in Drive, the summary will actually show at the bottom of that information panel. So if you're browsing through documents in Drive and you thought, oh, is this the one I wanted? You can actually just sort of have a look there and it'll show you the summary. Sometimes it doesn't do a good job of summarizing it. And if that's the case, you can always manually just type something in there. Okay, but it is sort of automated to some degree. Okay, let's just pop back to the blank document again, because I just want to show you a couple more of these smart chips. So if I go in there, now this is the one that I love. You may not do this, but we do this a lot at Google, where we collaborate together on the contents of an email. So you might have several people working on what this email should say. And the way we've typically done it is you open a Google Doc, you all kind of work together, you collaborate on it, and when it's ready, there's a whole bunch of cutting and pasting that needs to happen, right? Now what you can do from these building blocks here, and by the way, the building blocks are also here in the insert menu now as well. So whether you type the @ symbol or just go this way, like exactly the same thing. So if I choose, say, email draft, it actually drops this little table into my Google Doc like this, and I can say, okay, well, I want to send this to Kimberly and Steve. So I'll say @Kimberly, and it'll drop her in there. @Steve, put him in there. Subject, test. This is cool, right? So I compose my email. We can collaboratively compose the email. And when we're ready to send it, see this button on the side here? Click on that. It then fires up a Gmail window in the side and pre-populates it with all the stuff that we did inside Google Docs. I think that's a real time saver.
I'm glad this is being recorded, Chris, because I feel like I'm going to go back and just rewatch that, because it's so good. It's so good.
It's really neat. I really like that. And there's a whole bunch of other things as well. Let me just throw that one away.
Chris, hey, I'm just thinking some use cases, right? So say I have to send something out to a whole group of different people. Like if I could have the thing and we could have collaborated on it, and then we just substitute out whatever names we want in that to field.
Yeah. And
it'll automatically appear to those people.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's actually the technical term that we use.
So when this appears, like, check out some of these building blocks. I think they're really neat. Like, let's say you were working on a project. What's a good one here?
What's product roadmap? I'm sorry, this is no session for me, but I'm learning a lot.
So it's just like, let's say you're working on a little project here. Oh, can I do that? Oh, sorry. Can I go in there and press tab? Oh, it does. It adds new lines. That's awesome. Okay. So like it pre-populates this little table, but the table is actually active. So it's got these little drop downs here where you can create, different stages of where something else.
And I can edit all those headings across the top of my table, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. And in fact, let me just jump out of there and show you. If I go to the, it's in the insert menu as well as the thing, insert a drop down. This has never been in Docs before. So insert a drop down, and I want to create a new drop down. And let's say, I don't know, let's say I had, blue, green, yellow, red, or whatever. They're my house colors at school. And I want to put a little drop down in my document. And you can even sort of color code them if you want. So let's do that. Let's do green, we've got yellow, we've got red. So you can do all that sort of stuff. And when you save that then forms a little drop down list inside Docs. Now, the way I just thought, well, how would you use that? And I thought, well, if you wanted to create a document that was something you were giving your kids and they had to make some choices, they had to indicate, I don't know, which house they're in or what their age group was, effectively the sorts of things you might normally do with a form, but in like a really simplified format, you could then put that into a document and then take that document and send that out through Google Classroom so every kid gets a copy. And now every kid is sort of customizing the responses inside that Google Doc. I think there's a real grey area here about where you move from a form to an interactive Google Doc.
I know. From that demonstration, I'm not using spreadsheets anymore either. I've got rid of slides and now rid of spreadsheets. Docs is like the only tool I ever need in my life. Chris, can I copy that and paste it anywhere in my document that I want?
That?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can go copy, and then you can go copy, 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 and then you can change each one of them independently.
And the good thing about drop downs, in all seriousness, with spreadsheets is that this is what I've learned. Obviously, when we have free text fields, sometimes we have lots of different interpretations of spelling or the use of upper or lowercase and those sorts of things. Whereas if you have drop downs, if you want to keep it more consistent, you're going to actually get consistency in the data that you're extracting.
Well,
of course, now Docs is used for data, not spreadsheets anymore. So.
You just made me think, like, you know, even things like creating a close passage for students where they have to read and then sort of choose the missing word.
Yeah.
And that could be a drop down. So I think there's going to be 1,000,001 sort of uses for this once teachers get their head around how they could use it. They're going to think of things I can't think of. But anyway, that's just some of the stuff. Nigel, you've asked, you're not seeing it yet. None of these are plus features. These are all fundamentals features. So you'll get them in all the editions. But they're not all rolled out yet. So it was launched yesterday, and we normally have about a 2-week rollout before everyone sees it. So maybe shorter or longer. Just any questions on any of that, guys?
I did see someone put this is so vague. Someone put a little clip on one of the social medias that coming to smart chips is maps as well. And so maps will be inside the smart chip. So you can actually add an address and it'll give you a Google map inside your dock. So that
Yeah, I saw that.
That's a publicly released thing. Like that person didn't used to work at Google and is now fired from putting that.
It's publicly announced. In fact, if you're interested, guys, we'll share these slides with you. In fact, Steve, maybe in your background, if you could just share those with folk in the chat. But in the slides at the bottom of those, I'm sorry if I can make these pages not move all the time. There's a link down the bottom there to the actual blog article that announced all these yesterday. If anyone would like to
there you go.
So so the smart chips get smarter. That's about all I want to say on that because we got more stuff to talk about. But the other thing, I won't do it, but just to know, so you know it's there. This is a plus feature. So unless you're on the plus edition, you may not see this. We've got approvals now. So approval chains in documents where you have, say you've created a document and the head of department needs to sign off on it and the principal needs to sign off on it, whatever. So you can now go to approvals. It opens up a panel on the side. And when you do that, you can then simply drop in the names, make a request, drop in the names of the people that need to approve. So in this case, let's say it's Steve and Kimberly. So you put that in there and send that off. And then they'll get a notification that says, it's telling me they need access, of course. They'll get a notification that they need to approve. And you can see this little graphic on the side here. You know, it came from me, it went to Kimberly and Steve, and once they've seen it and they approve it, they will give it the approval. And once they approve it, it actually locks the document, so you can't make any more changes, because obviously you don't want to change a document that's been approved. Otherwise, you'd have to reapprove it. And you'll get a little message up the top here telling you that that document is locked. I can see Steve's just come in here, so he will probably approve it any second now.
Yeah, I'm just giving it a good read. Giving it a good read.
Yeah.
And then just the last thing I wanted to show you, and this is, I don't really have a good document to show you this, but I'll go back to this Anzac Day one for a second. And I wrote this, so it's only going to show me. But let's say this was a document that multiple people had collaborated on. So you've had multiple students come in and they've all worked on this together and everyone's written a bit and some people have corrected sentences and so on. And you've had this like true collaboration go on. You know that you can go to the file menu and down to the, version history. And you can always go into version history and actually roll back or see all the different stages that document was. Or the other thing, if you're on the Plus edition, you can actually select a specific sentence, right-click on it and say, show editors. And this is only going to show me because I'm the only one. But if multiple people had worked on this document, it would show here who all the individual people were that contributed to that specific sentence. And it would tell you when it happened and everything else. If you need to jump to the version history to look at it, you can do it from there. But this is a much more impressive example when lots of people have done it, because you'd see like multiple names here and you know specifically who changed what. Sometimes from version history, even though it's all there, it's kind of hard to pass through and figure out exactly who did what. This makes it much easier.
Nice.
All right. So that's all the Google Docs stuff. Steve, I'm going to hand over to you to just talk quickly about the Sheets updates.
Nobody needs Sheets anymore. We just established that. Just skip this. Go to the next one.
Yeah, totally. I should jump back in here. Yeah, so you obviously see that there's a lot of work being done around AI and ML, and Sheets is a really great one because I know that, you know, often Chris is the person I quickly send a message to go, can you help me with this thing on Sheets? And now I don't need to bug Chris so much because Sheets helps me. So when I type in a whole lot of data or grab a whole lot of data from somewhere else and I highlight it, it will actually suggest what it thinks I want to do. So if I went across the top, I will go, oh, do you want to do an average? And if I say yes, I can click the arrow, the tick, and then I'll go, oh, do you want to fill the whole thing with that? I'm like, yep, I would please. And the nice thing about it is it shows you the formula as well. So if I want to kind of teach myself, I can look at that formula and teach myself. I can also say no. And if I say no, it'll get a little bit sad and say, oh, why is that? And so you give a little bit of feedback and it learns. So if you say no lots of times, it'll ask for lots of feedback. So, but generally it's pretty good. And I do like the fact that even because people go, but students will learn, all the information is there about what the formula is, and you can play around with it, you can change it. So it's a nice little update there. And also correct your formula if it's wrong, which is what mine usually is as well. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. But there is some really great work in that. And when people kind of ask, what is AI and what is ML? You know, what does it mean when a machine learns? This is a really nice example when you can give feedback and it learns from it.
And I think, look, I've had to summarize all of these changes up. It's Google trying to be more helpful. It's trying to preemptively give you suggestions and ideas before you even realize you need them, and to make things easier and connect up. So there you go. So yes, Steve, I might defer to you or Kimberly on this one as well. Chrome OS Flex. This is a nice little thing that's come out.
Yeah. So this was announced just this week. So again, we're announcing things that are public, which is fabulous. There used to be an amazing product called Neverwhere Cloud Ready, and what it would do is it would allow you to install Chrome OS on old machines. So I inherited an old HP Pavilion from my parents with Windows 7 on it, and I went, well, trying to use it is like using mud. It's like walking through mud with gumboots on. So is that a New Zealand thing? I don't know. Anyway, so what I did was I used this product called Neverwhere, and Neverwhere basically strips everything out of that computer and puts Chrome OS on it and turns it into a nice little Chrome machine. Now, because Chrome is very, very lightweight, it runs super quick. So I actually do a lot of my stuff sitting in one of my offices on my really super old HP Pavilion running Chrome. Now, I've also done it on a brand new out-of-the-box, very, very cheap laptop that I bought just to see if I could. Now, it was such an amazing product that Google bought Neverwhere. And said, we love this product. Now, it's been rebranded as Chrome OS Flex. Now, what it means is that you can either do it straight from a thumb drive, or you can do a little bit of installer if you want. And it basically takes Chrome OS and either runs it from the thumb drive, or will put it onto the computer and reinvigorate it. And I was talking to a school recently about this, and what they did is they had an old set of desktop machines. They were going to get rid of them. And I said, have you tried Neverwhere? This is back when it was called Neverwhere. And what they did was they went through, they stripped everything off those machines. They are now basically a Chrome box or a desktop version of Chrome, and they work beautifully because Chrome is so small. So Chrome OS Flex has just been released publicly. It's still in its beta. It's been in beta with a bunch of our people for about 5 months now. And so they've tested on all sorts of stuff. So you can jump onto that link, and it'll give you some information about what Chrome OS Flex is. And you can get on the beta and get access to it, or you can wait for a couple of months until everything's ironed out. There are people trying it on all sorts of machines. So I would love to see if someone had one of those old turquoise iMacs that are all in ones, and see if you chuck Chrome on that, because that would be beautiful. So there is a big list of things that works beautifully on. There are some that has a few bugs still, but Chrome OS Flex, put Chrome on an old machine. Don't throw them away. Make yourself a whole pile of new machines for your students to use. Common areas, turn them all into Chrome boxes. Students log in, work beautifully. Chrome OS Flex, go and have a look. Oh, nice.
The use case
Michael's going to give you a shot for us on some retro gear.
Oh, good. Yeah. The use case most commonly in Australia is that particularly primary school classrooms tend to have the 5-ish odd devices sitting at the back of the room that have got an inch of dust on them, because you turn them on and you have to go away, and by the time that turns on you finish the lesson. And the idea of turning them into Chromebooks is that you actually get to embrace the power of Chrome, which is that speed. So the boot up actually becomes 30 seconds for those devices, and they actually become really usable again. So yeah, it's a really great one to try out. When Steve was talking about the ones it doesn't work on, it's not the list of things that it works on are supported. So what that means is that someone will help you if you need to, sort of thing. Whereas the ones that we all at Google are all about cutting edge. So please do try it on devices that it doesn't, because it probably does work. They just haven't tested it on enough for it to have made the list.
Yeah.
There is a question in there about does it work on old Chromebooks? And Steve, didn't you do that recently?
I have heard that there are some people testing it on old Chromebooks. So if there's an old Chromebook that's not getting updates, one of the first questions when we started testing this was, can we use it on old Chromebooks? So we're talking like 8-9-year-old Chromebooks, and some people have made it work. It's not perfect yet, but that is something that people want to do because they want to get really, 9 or 10 or 12 years out of the old Chromebook. And the other really great tip about this is they are manageable from your admin console. So they turn up in your admin console, fully manageable with the Chrome Education Upgrade license as well.
Awesome. We should move on. That's a good thing. So a couple of Chromebook tips I just thought we should run through. For those who have Chromebooks, I know looking across here, I know that's some of you. Just a couple of tips on Chromebooks. There is keyboard shortcuts built into Chrome OS, and I'm just going to come out of there and just show you. So if I press Control-Alt ? I get this box pops up here, and this is all the keyboard shortcuts in Chrome OS. So if there's it's searchable. So if you want to know how to do something like, how do I cut? Well, there you go. It's Control X, right? Or how do I change the volume, right? And there's all the volume controls there, and it'll give you the sort of the shortcuts and stuff for it. So so that's kind of useful. If you're in an actual application, let's just go back over to Google Docs for a sec. If you're in an actual application here, and I press Shift ? Sorry. Come out there, Shift ? Not to actually type it. What am I doing? Oh, Control ? Silly me. It'll show you the keyboard shortcuts for this particular tool. So Control Shift ? gives you keyboard shortcuts for Chrome OS, and Control ? gives you the keyboard shortcuts for that particular tool that you're in, and that will work whether you're on a Chromebook or not for the individual tools. So that might be useful too if you can't remember, how do I change to a particular style, right? And you type in the word style. Well, it didn't give me anything. That's weird. Oh, headings is what I wanted. Headings, right? And it'll give you all the shortcuts for applying headings, for example. So they're useful to know. The other things I wanted to mention, taking screenshots. I have worked with Windows and Macs and Linux and all different machines over the last however many years I've been doing this. And Chrome OS by far is the simplest one to deal with if you're taking screenshots. I take a lot of screenshots, right? But let's say I want to take a screenshot. It's literally the Control Shift and the little button that looks like that. I don't know what to describe it. It's called the Windows button is its actual name. So if I go Control Shift that button, and my screen goes gray, and now I draw a box around the thing that I want to screen snap, and I press Enter. That goes immediately onto my clipboard. I don't have to do anything else. If I want to use that, I just go up there and press Paste, and there it is. So that was literally like 3 keystrokes to go, not only to capture it, but also to then reuse it as well.
Hey, Chris, that button you push for the screenshot, that's the one that takes you to different desks, isn't it? Because you have like multiple desks open in Chrome.
It is. And yeah, so it is. When you do that screenshot though, if you look down the bottom, like by default, it does what's called a region screen capture. So it lets you draw a box around the thing you want. So if I just want that, for example, that's what it'll capture. But you can also change it to capture just the window you're in. So if you've got multiple windows in, you can choose that one, and then you move your mouse over the particular window you want to capture, and it'll capture the entire window. Or you can capture the entire screen, which includes like everything, including the taskbar and the whole lot. Or if you flick this little switch down the bottom here, you can flip that across to video. And when you go to video, just click on the gear wheel and just make sure that your audio is turned on. It's off by default normally. So just make sure it's using your microphone so it will record your voice if you want your voice recorded. And you can say where it goes as well. And so once you've got those settings going, now if I hit that button, 3, 2, 1, and now it's recording my screen and it's doing a screencast, and it's just kind of like Screencastify, except a little bit simpler and built into the Chromebook. And when I'm done, I click that button and it stops, and there's the recording. If I click that recording, there it is right there. Open it up and hit play. Now it's recording my screen and it's doing a screencast. And so I think it's a really nice, simple, easy tool, and it's built in. So yes, there are great extensions like Screencastify, and I still really like Screencastify, and I would recommend it if you've never used it. But if you're looking for something lightweight and simple and built in, it's right there in Chrome OS. And just the last thing I will mention here.
And we also, can I just say on that, Chris, we also announced last year that that's getting better. So there's a whole lot of machine learning stuff that's actually coming to that screen recorder. So watch this space this year. There's going to be some pretty advanced things enhancing that even more. Coming.
I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to go into my slide deck here and just make a new blank slide. Because I just want to show you something. There's a little button down here, this little button down the bottom of my Chromebook there. It's called the tote, as in carrying things around, right? And I didn't use this for the longest time because I couldn't really see the point. And then I discovered what it's for, and it's like it's changed everything. When I click on tote, all the things that I've cut and pasted and copied or screen captured or anything else, they go into this little tote area here. So I can go back in time, like this meeting notes thing, right? Let's pick it. I'll pick that one there. So this number 3, right, was a screen capture I did 3 nights ago, and it's still sitting in my tote. If I want to use it, I just pick it up and drag it out and drop it onto the page. And there's the, maybe I shouldn't show that one. There's the, well, I didn't know what that was.
Lucky it's not being recorded.
Yeah, lucky. Yeah. But what the tote is just this area where it keeps everything. So
and you can pin things as well, can't you, Chris?
That screenshot I took a little while ago that I've since done other things now, I can pick that up and I can drag it out and reuse it. There it is. That's what I used ages ago. And it's just so simple to pop the tote open and drag it out. Now, let's say it was a screenshot of something that I actually reuse a lot, right? And eventually it's going to kind of disappear, right? So what I can do is I can come in here and go, well, this one here, see that little pin button there? If I hit the pin button, it will actually add it into my pin files collection. And let's do this one as well, right? So now I've got 2 things in my pin collection. They will stay there indefinitely. So anything you want to constantly kind of reuse, just pin them there and drag them out when you're ready for them. So I really, really like the tote. I didn't appreciate it when it came out. Now I do. Now I'm telling you about it because I think.
And I know we've said that about everything so far, but there are some pretty cool things coming to the tote as well. That's going to be in there. And if you read any of the kind of updates that are rumored, there is some pretty cool stuff coming to both the tote and the screen recorder.
That is true. I'm very mindful of time, so I'm just gonna where was I? You've got these slides. I saw Steve drop them into the chat there. If you haven't checked it out, take a look at Chromebook Simulator. It is it's technically not a simulator. I think it's badly named, but it's a website that actually you can go through and just click on if you've got Chromebooks. And I know teachers who give this to their kids, and when their kids want to know how to do something on the Chromebook, they can just look it up. Well, how do I manage my files? They click on that. How do I delete a file? Click on that. And it takes you to this little sort of tutorial on the side here that steps you through how you would get rid of a file. So this is a great little live kind of demo tutorial resource for teachers and students with regard to Chromebooks. Definitely worth checking out. All right.
And the other things maybe we can come back to next
We can.
Chris, so just to add to yours there, I also dropped a little course in there, which is gamified Chromebook training.
Oh, nice.
So have a look at that, people in the chat. I won't talk about it because we've been talking for a long time.
We have. I'm not going to unpack any of these here. We might save these for another session here. But when we start to think about all the stuff that's not just kind of workspace, all the other cool stuff that Google stuff that is super useful in a classroom, like arts and culture and applied digital skills and Google Earth Studio and Teachable Machine, there's a whole bunch of really, really interesting things that Google do that aren't specifically education as such. But I've linked them all there in the slides if you want to go and check them out. We will unpack some of them in future sessions. We mentioned before that there was the Meet Early Access, the beta that you can join. There's also a classroom, there was the classroom roster one we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
If you're interested in connecting your SIS, there is a beta program for that. There's a link there for it. You can learn more about it. there's a super secret thing that Steve knows about, but we might hold that over till next time, Steve. Perhaps.
Yeah, totally. Hey, the Meet Early Access one, if you are an Aotearoa school and you are thinking about lockdowns again, there are some pretty cool features you can get early access in the Meet Early Access program. If you're from any school, it can be as well, not just us over here. But yeah, if you want to see early access features of Meet, then jump on that early access program, fill in the form, and I'll get back to you.
Fantastic. And I don't know, Kimberly, you want to briefly mention either of those, but we are running some Chromebook pilots for teacher machines.
And please reach out, and maybe we can share a bit more in the next session as well. But we do have the opportunity for you to have some high-end, awesome Chromebooks in your schools for your teachers to get their hands on. But we are over time, so let's jump to the very end and let these wonderful people get on with their evening.
Exactly. What is the very end? Thanks for registering for this webinar. There's more coming up. I hope we see some more of them in the future. We do keep an archive of all our past webinars, and I'll be updating this website. Well, it's not really a website, it's a slide deck. I'll be updating it shortly with the new ones, so keep your eye on that. It's just at bit.ly/AUNZ_webinars. And if you would like a PD certificate for having given up an hour of your valuable time this afternoon with us, if you head over to bit.ly/GFE certificate, fill that form in, and it will generate a certificate of attendance for you and email it straight back to you. Like I always say, it's an honor system, so just put in the real numbers, and whatever you put in there is what it'll give you back. Okay, there you go. And I think that's it.
Amazing.
If anyone's here from the South Australian, Victorian, or New South Wales DOEs, there may be some things we've talked about today that are specific to your particular context, and if that's the case, there are the email addresses you need to speak to clarify anything on that in that regard. And that about wraps us up, team.
Amazing.
All
Thanks all for giving up your evenings in New Zealand and afternoons in Australia too.
Everyone, I'm going to stop the recording now. We'll say goodbye. Thanks for joining us. We will be hanging around for a few minutes. If anyone wants to hang around and ask any questions, we will be here for a few more minutes.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
Ka kite.